our submission is basically requesting that social workers become registered with the NRAS scheme, which is probably a little bit different to where some of the other allied health professions are sitting. So social work is a tertiary qualified profession. It's a 4-year full-time degree, recognised internationally, that pursues social justice and human rights. Social workers aim to enhance the quality of life of every member of society, to empower them to develop to their full potential. Principles of social justice, human rights, collective responsibility, and respect for diversity are central to the profession and underpinned by theories of social work, social sciences, humanities, and Indigenous knowledges. Professional social workers consider the relationship between biological, psychological, social, cultural factors and how they influence a person's health and well-being and their development. Social workers work with individuals, families, groups, and communities. They maintain a dual focus on improving health, human well-being, and identifying and addressing any internal, external issues known as systemic or structural issues that detract from well-being, such as inequality, injustice, and discrimination. There are more. It's approximated to be more than about 40,000 social workers in Australia who work with vulnerable clients in challenging and complex circumstances. The scope of social work practice includes assessments, crisis intervention, counselling, and other evidence-based therapeutic interventions. Group work, case management, service coordination, advocacy, education, practical support. Social work supports people across a range of issues. While the ASW currently regulates the social work profession, self-regulation exposes 3 gaps that would otherwise be closed, we believe, if social work was included in NRAS. Firstly, the majority of social workers sit outside our regulatory system. This is because only 35% of social workers in Australia are members of the ASW. This means that the majority of social workers that are practicing in Australia do not have a relationship with the ASW, are not being held accountable to their social work specific code of ethics. They may not even know about it. We hope they do, but they maybe don't. And may not have access to resources and CPD opportunities with respect to ethical practice. Secondly, unsafe social workers continue to practice in Australia. If a complaint about an ASW member is upheld, the ASW terminates, and if the ASW terminates that membership, the social worker can continue to practice as a non-member. We've had examples of this in the past when there's been a complaint made. The ASW attempts to pursue that complaint through our ethics complaint management process, and the member has just withdrawn membership, and the ASW is not able to do anything really of substance about it. The ASW processes does not have the power to determine fitness to practice or prevent expelled members from ongoing social work practice, as I just detailed, nor can the details of serious misconduct or names and actions of social workers be made available in the public domain, all of which mean a greater unintended risk to the public. Thirdly, people without a social work qualification can claim to be a social worker, and we've had many examples in the media of this being the case. Unlike regulatory authorities in the countries where social work is registered, the ASW has no jurisdiction over the misuse of the social work title. There have been calls for registration since 2000. There have been a number of inquiries and inquests calling for registration of social work, particularly in the context of child protection. 3 high-profile cases have been most notable where social work has been called by the coroners to be registered. The Mulligan Commission of Inquiry in 2008, the coroner inquest into the death of Chloe Valentine in 2015, also the coroner inquest into the Evian Napier into 2016. All of these reports provide recommendations that social work is to be a registered profession, or should be a registered profession, I should say. Despite being one of the largest allied health providers in Australia and the profession that works with the most vulnerable Australians, including those experiencing trauma, loss, mental illness, abuse, social work is not nationally regulated and not included in NRAS, as you know. While the ASW provides strong regulation for those social workers who choose to be members, we believe that statutory registration of social workers is necessary to achieve adequate and professional standards for all social workers and to protect people who use social work services. We believe the principal issues would be related to public safety, professional quality, and professional accountability and recognition. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Senator Urquhart, do you have some questions?
I might come back in a moment. Sorry, I'm in the middle of something. I should have sent you a WhatsApp. If I could come back to you, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, no problem. Senator Hughes, do you have some questions?
Yeah, look, I've just got one question, and it sort of covers off everyone, and I did notice that the OTs particularly address this. The AHPRA registration process, what sort of, you mentioned with the NDIA that there's sort of like a dual process, and we're seeing that across the board when it comes to the NDIA and NDIS, that their registration is so separate to everyone else's. It's producing additional onerous costs to a lot of providers in the double up. And I guess I wanted to sort of ask the question across the board whether or not there was something in the AHPRA registration that's currently not, that's a lower standard than I guess what the NDIA is requiring, or are they the same? Just trying to get an understanding of whether or not there's any merit, and obviously a couple of us sit across a number of committees impacted by this, whether or not, there is scope to start looking at those registrations being movable across bureaucratic areas, and whether they're all at a certain, a similar standard. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm happy to jump in and answer that one.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question, Senator. Look, we would believe that the processes that AHPRA currently have are rigorous enough, and that it's actually stood us in good stead for from the time that AHPRA was established, and having national registration was actually a wonderful step forward. I suppose we've seen the NDIA in particular come in, and we understand that we are working with vulnerable clients and participants of the NDIS, but it does seem to be unnecessary duplication. There is annual registration. There is, and I think people, if there is any issues with unsafe practices, consumers and participants of the NDIS know that their logical step is to go to the registration board. So we believe that there is sufficient rigour, and the process is there in checking of things like criminal history, the compliance around keeping up to date with ongoing continuing professional development. We believe that those processes are actually sufficient, and we are also concerned that there might be other arms of government, other services that will introduce something similar. For instance, the Traffic Accident Commission in Victoria, or like bodies in other areas that will just increase the level of bureaucracy that's not needed. And quite frankly, a lot of occupational therapists are really reconsidering whether or not they continue to work with NDIS participants, which is a really a major concern given that these people are in need of services and are also some of the most vulnerable recipients we have.
But again, that would be only working with agency-managed NDIS participants, because plan and self-managed can use non-registered providers. Yeah? Rach, can you hear me? I seem to have lost everyone.
Senator Hughes, it's Sina here. We've just had all of the video drop out in the hearing, so we've lost everybody at the moment, so it's just you on telephone.
Okay.
We're just going to need to suspend, I think, at this stage.
Yeah, okay. Can you just put on the WhatsApp when you want me to dial back in?
Yeah.
Thanks.